Welcome back to Plague Scythe Studios, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Fender's Modern Player Telecaster. For those of you that have been around the channel a time or two have probably noticed that we're all about the metal here. We like the 8 strings, we like the high gain amplifiers. So it might come to you as a surprise that I do enjoy the types of music that would call for a Telecaster. I like Southern rock, I like classic country, not what they call country now. You know, the Waylon Jennings, the George Jones of the world. But I never owned a Telecaster. It was never useful to me. So there's several reasons behind that. My first guitar was a Squier Stratocaster. I still have it over there. I hate the thing though. There's nothing I play that calls for a Stratocaster sound, and I don't really like the feel of them anyway. Most of the time I can get by with a humbucker on the bridge, or I can, you know, manipulate the tone a little bit to work with a more Gibson type guitar. I do like the 25.5-inch scales, hence why I do like Jackson guitars for high gain stuff, but there's never been a moment where I've really needed to go back to Fender until now. So I'm in the middle of working on a little bit of a Southern flavored heavy metal project, and I've been using my Gibson SG for it. But there came a time where I was recording stuff and thought, man, a single coil would sound really good with this, or I think a Tele neck coil would sound really good. The problem is I've never been able to justify owning a Telecaster because there's nothing that I would play outside of recording a couple things that I would just be able to pick this up and play the type of music that I do. There's people out there like Jim Root of Slipknot that do love Telecasters for high gain stuff. You got people like John 5 also do, but for me it just was never a fit. That's until the Modern Telecaster released, and it basically solved all my gripes about Telecasters. Number one, start with a subtle thing. The back of the body. So here we have a contour similar to what a Stratocaster would have instead of just a big chunk of wood. That's one thing about Telecasters I never really liked, is the flatness of the back of the body. And I can get by with it with stuff like Gibson Les Pauls because the neck is angled relative to the body, so the way you hold it is actually a little off center compared to how I would do here. But with this guitar, I can hug it up tight whether I'm sitting or standing, and it feels really good. And you don't need that extra neck angle to carry it. Some of the other obvious things here are, number one, we have a middle pickup, which is a Stratocaster middle pickup, and not something that I would use normally, but it is nice to have the extra flexibility. Of course, on the neck you have the classic Telecaster bridge pickup, but back here we have a humbucker, which makes this guitar actually usable to me because all of my high gain rhythm sounds I need a humbucker for. But you're not just limited to the humbucker sound. Here we see an extra toggle switch, which then gives you a coil split. And I've kind of talked about my opinions of coil splits in the past. I think they're great. I think that they're not nearly as good as a regular single coil on its own. There's stuff like Fishman Fluence pickups, which can change the voicing, which sound dead on to a single coil. But having this is a really useful feature in addition to having a 5-way switch, because you can not only choose to mix these pickups, but you can choose whether or not you want the single coil or humbucker back here, which gives you a lot of options. Too many options for what I need, but it's really nice to have. About the only tones that are missing from this thing in terms of pickup sounds is, number one, a humbucker on the neck, which I could just play a Gibson guitar, another one of the guitars I have, not really a big deal, and a piezo for acoustic stuff, which you could actually install here thanks to using, you know, kind of standard Fender Telecaster bridge there. So a little bit of modification, you could turn this into basically the entire tonal palette that I would normally use. Other features, you know, got your standard Telecaster 25.5-inch scale, got a maple neck with the maple fretboard, which is the first maple fretboard guitar I've actually ever owned. I've been wanting one with one just to have it, just because it's different. I've always liked the feel of maple fretboards, just never worked out for me. And pretty much everything else is standard Telecaster affair. That certainly doesn't make it a bad thing. The attentive among you probably noticed that this is also tuned fairly low. So I'm playing in C standard, which is the same key I'll be using it for on my Southern Rock project. It holds it phenomenally. When I changed over to C standard on my Gibson SG, it took me a good 45 minutes of setting it up, of adjusting the bridge, adjusting the truss rod, and I experimented with different string gauges for about a year to get it to the point I'm at now. I took the same string gauges, which are Ernie Ball hybrid slinky, so you got the heavy on bottom, the 52 gauge up to 10s on top, just threw them on here, no adjustments, and the action is beautiful. It plays like a dream, and no further setup required. If you're just going to use the stock string gauges on this for standard E or E flat, it'll work just fine too. So I'm really surprised how versatile of a guitar this is, not just for cleans, not just for the string gauges and tuning you can use, but of course tonality as well. So I'm overall really impressed with this guitar, but I think the things that I'm most impressed about is twofold. So number one, made in China on the back, which you know, is a deal breaker for some people, especially because it is a name brand Fender guitar, but I don't really care where it comes from as long as the craftsmanship and the materials and everything that is used is of high quality. I could not care less, and it feels like a high quality guitar. You could hand this to someone who's used to playing Mexican Strats or Mexican Teles, and they could not tell the difference, I think, even in sound. Of course, if you had hand wound pickups and everything side by side, someone with a good ear could probably tell, but none of that matters to me because this guitar comes in at a low price of $500. That's super affordable for how many features you're getting. I think it's way more worth the money to be able to have these extra tonal palettes, to invest in something like this than something that would save you maybe $100 or so in the Squier range. And I think a lot of the higher end Squier guitars are of great quality as well. And this fits the middle ground, I think, between the more traditionally built Fenders and higher end Squier guitars. So this fits my tonal needs exactly. And I think it definitely fits a market segment that wasn't really catered towards by Fender for a long time. As much as I do love modern innovations, you know, dual truss rods, 8-string, 7-string, 9-string guitars, extended scale lengths, active pickups, all these cool things, I always have, you know, had a love for traditional guitars, traditional instruments like this. And to be able to tweak it and actually be usable in more than just a couple songs for me, it definitely made its value proposition really high. So overall, I think Fender's back in the game for me, which is kind of strange considering I haven't played any of their stuff for 10 plus years, but I'm really enjoying this thing, and I look forward to getting through some of the other toys that I've acquired in the recent weeks that I've not been able to get to on the channel, so I'm working through a backlog on that. But yeah, I would highly recommend this thing for the price. You can pick up one used for, you know, 100, 150 bucks less. I think you're crazy not to, even if you just play it like once a month, it's worth just to have. And gotta give a well done round of applause to Fender. They definitely knocked it out of the park with this one for the price and build quality. I like it a lot. I like it so much that I think I'm going to have the right pan guitar on my project be this guitar. I was planning on just double tracking with the SG, but I think to add a little bit more nuance, a little bit of effect to make it sound like someone else is playing a guitar, not just me, that I think I'm gonna go with this because it handles the tuning so well and it just sounds awesome. So yeah, 2 thumbs up for me. Great job, Fender, and I look forward to seeing the other stuff you come up with in the near future. So that'd be all. Any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them below, and we will see you on the next review. Thanks for watching. Bye.